as I said, chat, I just saw The Black Phone today, which is Scott Derrickson's latest film. The film that he went to make after he had some disagreements with Marvel, chat, over Doctor Strange 2. Left that, came to work on this adaptation, which was already being written by C. Robert Cargill, chat, of course, a friend of Double Toasted. It is an adaptation of Joe Hill's short story, and Joe Hill, of course, is, the son of Stephen King. Now, I kind of give you a brief background on this film. Takes place in 1978 in Denver, Colorado. It's actually kind of cool because in the 70s and certainly in the 80s, you had all of these various serial killer cases going on. It was almost rampant. Like every other week, there seemed to be like a new serial killer popping up and, kidnapping children or women or all sorts of other people. And so one of the things that really stood out to me was just the setting of this movie. And it follows a young boy who is kidnapped by the serial killer, the serial kidnapper called the Grabber, played by Ethan Hawke. And I even remember, like, for all the trailers and marketing for this movie, it really stood out. I thought it was really slick. I like that. I like a good thriller, a good kidnapping thriller. I had some initial concerns because, as you guys know, I'm a little bit biased. I'm not the biggest fan of a lot of supernatural movies, a lot of ghost films, which this does have an element of that. But I figure for the most part, that is handled well, or it's handled effectively, in certain circumstances. But kind of just my overall thoughts on the movie, Chad. I think it features some really strong performances from the principal cast. Certainly a standout performance from Ethan Hawke. Ethan Hawke has been having a fantastic year, coming off of The Northman, chat, and most recently playing the villain in Moon Knight. I feel like this is probably his creepiest and scariest performance so far in his career. I think I was reading an interview while prepping for this review today that he was initially concerned about this role, and he was like, I don't really want to just be defined, my entire career defined by a single performance, certainly as a villain. But then he realizes, like, I don't know, he read the material and he was really fascinated by it, and he thought it was fun. He's like, maybe the next, the last half of my career will be have me playing villainous characters. I mean, they're usually the ones that stand out in a lot of movies, Chad. They're typically some of the most fun characters for actors to play because it's so different from who they are in real life. So already off the bat, I think there's some strong performances, certainly by some of the child actors like Mason Thames, who plays Finney, who we follow for most of the movie. He was kidnapped by the Grabber, chat, who is preying on this specific community. Madeleine McGraw, who plays his sister, Gwen. I feel like what they do with most of her stuff is pretty fun. She holds her own number of scenes. Obviously, Ethan Hawke, as I said. And also Jeremy Davies as Terrence, who is the father of the two children in the movie, the alcoholic and abusive widowed father in the film. Outside the performance and just, Ethan Hawke in particular, I just really love the 1970s aesthetic. It just makes it feel like really gritty. And it's, like I said, it's very reminiscent of the widespread serial killer and kidnapping cases throughout the 1970s and 1980s. Even like how they present some of the footage, or they do flashbacks. It's all with this kind of archive footage type of thing. Very reminiscent of one of Scott Derrickson and C. Robert Cargill's earlier film, Sinister. So if you like those segments where you had like Ethan Hawke's character from that movie, like watching all these murders take place on like video cassette, they got a lot of that in here, and it's pretty cool. I just like how that just really stood out. It just made it feel even more dirty and disturbing. So I thought that was really cool. There's some decent scares in this movie. It's not like every single minute there's going to be something scary, something popping up at you. There's a couple of jump scares, but they were few and far between. And the jump scares that they had, I'm like, I think for like most people, like, we view a lot of jump scares as being pretty cheap. But for whatever reason, these ones didn't bother me. I thought they were effective, and they were only like maybe 3, maybe 4 throughout the entire film. And each one, it led to something that was already just unnatural and creepy, and it worked for me. And so when they did jump out, I wasn't really bothered by it. I thought it was pretty effective, and it served. That's the thing about it. It served a narrative purpose, and I really liked that. Honestly, the most effective element of the film which I guess you can kind of see from the marketing. A lot of people are saying like, oh, I think for most people it's like a serial killer ghost movie. But my favorite part, honestly, was the fact that this is, for most of it, a bottle film and a survival film, where a lot of it, certainly with the young character of Finney, played by Mason Thames, most of his scenes like take place within this basement environment, this completely concrete basement environment, and it reminded me of a lot of like kind of survival films that I really love, and hell, even stuff that maybe inspired Joe Hill, like Misery, which I'm like, there's a lot of Misery DNA in this movie, and I thought that's when the movie was at strongest. And also something like 10 Cloverfield Lane, where you're just trying to figure out your environment. That's what's so cool. Like, you're like, so much of this movie is the character of Finney. Obviously, he's there. You have this unnatural presence of these past children who have been murdered, and they're communicating via this black phone that is in the basement for some reason. And they're telling him certain things about the room that they were in, that they did, that tried to escape, and he's trying to use these things to also escape. And that is just really cool, of him trying to figure things out. And it's like, for example, I think I'm not going to do spoilers quite yet, but like him finding a large piece of long cable, or realizing that certain areas within the foundation or the wall, they're susceptible to, blunt force, and you can chip at it. Like a lot of this kind of stuff. I thought this was really effective, and the actor was like really holding it down in these scenes, while also dealing with the constant threat of Ethan Hawke randomly coming down at certain times. I thought that was really, really cool. Now, getting to like the more the things that I felt like the film kind of suffered, or some of the mistakes I think the film makes. I feel like the first third of this movie, the first 20 to 25 minutes, maybe you could say even half hour, is a little slow. And it also doesn't help that despite having like a strong central cast, main cast, like, the four actors that you have, I'm sorry, but there is some really bad child acting in this movie. And it's immediately at the fucking forefront within the first 10 minutes of the film. There's this, I don't know if anyone else has been talking about this, but there's this one bathroom scene in it that goes on for way too long, and the film's trying to establish a relationship between these two characters of Finney and this other kid, who's kind of like he's like the town, he's like the school guardian, Chad. He's not a bully. He beats up the bullies for everybody else, so you got to back off. And usually I'm always saying like, what? It's the script and the direction. It's not the actor's performance. I can say, chat, definitively, it's the actor's performance. It felt like I was watching a middle school play. It was really, really bad. And I was like, oh no. And that's the thing with me, like it's pretty much like the first 10 minutes of the movie. And I'm thinking like, oh, is this the fucking level of the child acting in this film? This is not good, because so much of this movie we spend with the kids, particularly with the character of Finn. But once this one kid is gone, and it's just pretty much it's Finn and Ethan Hawke. That's the thing about of that actor. Ethan Hawke, I think he just brings out better performances from everyone else around him. And thankfully that works in the case of Finn. When you have some kids that are just by themselves, which in the first third there's a lot of that, it's not the best. It's not the best. I think it's pretty good between Gwen and Finney for the most part. There's some awkward dialogue and exchanges, and I like that they showcase the relationship is not antagonistic, which is so often so many films, chat, that we get. You always have the brother and sister, or the brother and brother, sisters. They just fucking hate each other. It's like, oh my God, faux conflict. Like, I like that in this one. We have it where they have a very healthy relationship. One, because they fucking need to. They obviously need to, based on the circumstances that they live in. Even before Ethan Hawke gets there, they're already having a rough time to begin with, chat, with their abusive, alcoholic father. Aside from the acting, once the first third is over, once we get past that first half hour, then I feel like the movie, for the most part, works all the way till the very end. There's one specific subplot line that I want to get into that I feel was superfluous and was just not needed, even though I'm like, is that what that is? As a Stephen King fan, I was wondering if Joe Hill was doing his own version, or if this is something set in the Stephen King universe that made me interested. But one of the things that frustrated me, like, Ethan Hawke is doing such a great job. This one, when you think of Ethan Hawke's various performances throughout his career, this is going to be one of the ones people remember. That the one where he played that really creepy serial killer and that cool, 2022 horror thriller from all those years ago. The one thing that bothers me about him, and it's not Ethan Hawke's fault at all, it's actually a problem with the writing. They never establish what his motivations are, like at all. They're not defined. But they set it up in the movie. They set it up to like why he is doing the things that he's doing. And we're told by certain characters, like, he's trying to figure this thing out, but then that kind of leads to nothing. And I can understand where it's like, okay, as the writer, as the filmmaker, you have this really interesting character who has, his fucking getup is ridiculous, Chad. As you can, see right here. He has this mask. He has those giant 1970s glasses. He has this thick red turtleneck. He's wearing this fucking, like, top hat and everything. He has these black balloons. He always leaves these black balloons, the scenes of all of his crimes. Like, there's a lot to his look that stands out and looks very unique, and it's cool. And he likes grabbing people. That's the thing. That's his money. He loves grabbing people. That's pretty much it. But I can also understand as the filmmaker or as the writer, you almost don't want to do that because you run the risk of, well, if you reveal what his motivation is and it's kind of not, like, exciting, then people will look back at the performance and go like, that was kind of lame. And so they're kind of in a rock and a hard place, but it was the fact that they initially set up like, okay, there's something to him, and they just don't do that. Like at all. By the end of the movie, by the end of the conflict, it's like he was just creepy. He was just weird. And I was like, all right, okay. And that was a little disappointing for me. It didn't affect his performance. Ethan Hawke is still great. He's outstanding in the movie. So if you wanted to see Ethan Hawke be fucking weird and creepy and murderous, you're gonna get that. You're gonna get that in spades. But you're not gonna understand what he's doing, Chaz. It's like, and that can leave you wanting a little bit. There is also another fantastical element to the movie. Like all the stuff they do with the, as you see in the trailers, chat, there's these ghost children. And I thought that was handled pretty well for the most part. I love how they use the communication with the phone. Sometimes they show the ghost kids. Honestly, I wish they almost didn't show the ghost kids. I thought it was kind of unnecessary. I like how they communicate just with the phone, hence the black phone name. I was like, oh, that's kind of cool. It's good. It's good sound design too. Really good sound design. It was creepy unnatural. Some of the scenes they have with the kids were interesting, but some of the ones just felt superfluous. It wasn't not a big criticism, but it's like, you could take it and leave it. It's fine. Might work for some other people, might not work for some other people. There is another fantastical element to the movie, and I gotta be careful because I don't know if it's indicated in the trailers. I guess it is. So in the movie, the sister has these dreams, right? And she's able to see things that she's never seen before, or seen in the past or seen in the future, that kind of thing. It's like, okay, cool. It gives her something more to do in the movie. But really, all of that stuff with her inevitably, like, amounts to nothing by the end of the film. It's like, all right. Literally, it's like, it would have played no importance to the main plot overall. We would have gotten to the same result at the end of the film if she didn't have that at all. Maybe it would change, like, one wholesome moment between two characters, but outside of that, it's just like, there's no point to this. And I want to go into details what I think that thing is that she has. I'm like, what you might be referencing. I don't know if it's connected to something, but it was like, it's just superfluous to the story. So there's honestly, if they took out some fantastical elements and they maybe had more proper, given more definition to Ethan Hawke's motivation, other than just being, he's just weird, he's just grabbing kids for whatever reason, I felt like the central story would have been stronger. I would have liked that. But go more details about kind of the principal cast. Moving on from that, this Mason, I don't know if I've ever seen this kid in anything before. Correct me if I'm wrong, Chad, but Mason Thames, who plays Finney, he is great. He's great throughout most of the movie. Again, in that first third, when he has to act off against some of these kids and they are just not as good as him, they make him look bad, which is too bad. But once it's him and the Ethan Hawke show, he's great. And when he's by himself, when he's by himself, like, I love how he's being directed in all these scenes. Like, I mean, you spend a lot of the movie where you're just watching him try to figure out his environment and his room, and you feel for him. You feel for all the scenes. Like, it's a survival story. If you like survival stories, then you'll really dig his performance. You know, he goes to the fucking spectrum that you would experience, chat, in a live or die situation. I mean, everything from just, righteous anger to fucking, incredible sadness, blubbering and crying, everything like that, chat, and just kind of a little craziness too. Like he does a really good job. I think he is great, and this is his first role. Pretty good one to start off with. Pretty good to start out with. Then we have Madeleine McGraw, as I mentioned before, who plays his younger sister, Gwen. And she's the one that's experiencing all these psychic dreams, all these premonitions and things. I like her. I like her a lot. A lot of the film's comedy definitely comes from her. She has some interactions with some, the adult characters that I feel like, depending, comedy's always subjective, chat. So there's some stuff that I feel like was pretty funny. Like, she's the one that's kind of like, she's going to speak her mind. She's going to be very blunt. She's a little spitfire, if you will. And she doesn't mind getting into like a tussle with the boys, chat. I feel like some of the lines she was given don't work all that much. Like, there's just a lot of, they're swearing, but it's the kind of swears that just don't feel like, it's the kind of swears that movie executives think kids say all the time, like fuck gobbler and things. And I'm like, I don't think I've ever heard a child or a teenager or anyone I grew up with say a fucking knob gobbler or something. It's like, what? It was just really weird. And kind of unnecessary. Like, you could have just had him saying the classic, Chad, fuck, shit, asshole, that kind of thing. Or like, for whatever reason, like dickweed. I'm like, does anyone that we know say dickweed? Was that a common saying in the 1970s and 1978 in Colorado, Denver, Colorado, in the suburbs? People calling someone a fucking dillweed? Like, I don't know. I don't know. I just, some of that dialogue just felt a little inauthentic to me. But she has an amazing scene in the movie between herself and Jeremy Davis, who plays her very abusive father. There's a beating. So it's funny, even before Ethan Hawke really gets into the film, one of the most disturbing scenes in this movie, Ethan Hawke isn't in, and it deals with a child beating. And it was like, it felt very real and just very accurate, and how it's like, yes, how it would be. Just the whole, like, you're making me do this. And, because the dad's, obviously the drunk and what the kid is being said. Like, that felt real to me. Whereas, like, you fucking dillweed knob gobbler. It's like, that didn't feel real. Loaded Gone, thank you so much for resubscribing. As a Canadian, knob gobbler is a known term of endearment. There you go. Not in Denver, Colorado. Not in the suburbs of Denver, Colorado in 1978, I would say. And Vanny, thank you for resubscribing. 22 months of incredible support. I subbed to your channel as only a Manderville man can. Vanny, getting a lot of nice comments on today's stream. They were saying you did great yesterday on the movie extravaganza. Just talking about the black phone right now. But again, she also has these comedic scenes when she's, doing her psychic thing. And some of them work, some of them don't. There's also several sequences where she's like, fucking, like, again, she's as violent as her dad in some scenes where she'll go after some older boys and just knock the shit out of them. Okay, so I wanted to get at this in the end, but I realized as I keep talking about it, I need to bring this up. Joe Hill, much like his father, he has a thing for, like, psychopathic bullies, chat. Like, father like son, I suppose. The bullies in this movie, who especially are in the first third, these guys are fucking insane. I mean, they are vicious. Like, 5 minutes in the movie, we see a beatdown between two kids. I'm like, they should be fucking arrested. They should absolutely be arrested for what they're doing, Chad. It's kind of like, all right, come on. I mean, just blood and people getting their teeth knocked out and someone, washing their bloodied, blistered knuckles is like, it's a little much for me. I'm just, it's like, I know that there's bullies in real life, but these psychotic bullies in some cases are even worse than Ethan Hawke in the film. I'm like, all right, let's take it easy. That felt too much, a little inauthentic to me. But anyway, back to the other characters. Jeremy Davies, who I feel like, a lot of people don't know. I know he did Lost. He also has been doing a lot of work in video games, chat. So if you remember God of War 2018, he played Baldur in that. I think that's him, right? I think that's Jeremy Davis. I was like, because I'm like, God, this voice sounds so fucking familiar. And like his mannerisms, even when he looks, it's like, oh shit. And so that's him. And he has a decent amount of screen time, and I think he's great. Like you completely buy him as this really abusive alcoholic dad. Even like how you have this one scene with him where the kids, you can tell that this is just not a happy home, and all of the children, like his two children, like they don't even want to make a sound, like a loud sound, because it'll piss him off. Or like there's a scene where you have someone eating, and he's like even pissed off. He's like, why are you eating it like that? Making all them slurp sounds, and you can tell it's like, you don't know what's going to set him off to take off that fucking belt and start beating you with. Like, it's really good. It's effective. It's very effective. Or when you open the bread box and you put it down too fast and too hard, and he's like, something about that. Like, they do a really good job setting up what a piece of shit he is. I really liked it. And again, going back to Ethan Hawke, chat, he is the standout of this film. This is going to be one of his defining career performance. People are going to look back on this movie and go like, fucking Ethan Hawke. I mean, all the marketing centered around him, and for good reason, chat. Anytime he's on screen, he's great. He's effective. He's creepy as all hell. You don't know his motivation, which is not on Ethan Hawke. You know, that's on the writer. That's on the director. But he is very, very good in the movie. And so, yeah, despite the movie has some issues, it's not perfect. It is flawed. And, you know, despite its, you know, it's slow and sometimes poorly acted first third, it's the next 2/3. And when it's just that survival film, when it's that bottle film, when it is Finney versus Ethan Hawke and him trying to figure out how to get out of there. I love all of that shit. So if you like stuff like 10 Cloverfield Lane, if you like stuff like Misery, then I think you'll get a big kick out of this movie. And there's some solid performances from the principal actors outside of, you know, Ethan Hawke. Like I said, Mason Thames, Madeleine McGraw, and Jeremy Davies, I think they all do a very good job. All very good job, Chad. So, you know, for myself, if I were to give this like a rating on the Double Tilted scale, I think it's a solid matinee. This is an entertaining summer thriller, Chad. This is a matinee movie for me. But I want to hear from you guys, those of you who have seen it. Let me know in the comments below, and anyone else who, of course, is watching this for the sake of posterity, let me know.